The Horizon series has been one of players' favorite PlayStation franchises for years. Aloy, the story, the world design, and that unique atmosphere are what truly made this series special. But now, for Horizon 3, the expectation is no longer just a bigger map or better graphics. Because when I looked through the comments under Horizon 3 videos online and on my own channel, I saw the same requests coming up again and again. And honestly, if Guerrilla does not make the right moves on a few critical issues, then no matter how big the third game looks, it could still feel incomplete for a lot of players. So in this video, we are going to talk about the 5 critical changes players most want to see in Horizon 3. Let's get started. Number 1. Staying faithful to the single-player experience. For a lot of players, the Horizon series is not just a successful open-world game. It is also a special world you can step into, get lost in, and form a connection with through its main character. That is what made Aloy's journey so powerful from the very first game. The machines, nature, the secrets of the past, and at the center of all of it, a character searching for her own identity. So when I looked at the comments people were making about Horizon 3, one of the clearest things I noticed was this. People want this series to grow, but they absolutely do not want it to lose its soul. Especially in recent years, as online projects, live service models, and multiplayer experiments have become more common on the Sony side, it has been very easy to see that some players are genuinely worried about Horizon. Because a lot of people do not love this series for competition. They love it for the story. The moment you add a structure that constantly requires an internet connection, forced co-op missions, or systems that divide the main experience, Horizon's sense of loneliness, exploration, and personal journey can start to take damage. Players are not afraid of change itself. They are afraid of the main series losing its identity. I think the most critical point here is this. If Guerrilla wants to experiment with new ideas, it should do that around the main structure, not in place of it. In other words, the universe can expand, side projects can exist, and even social systems can be created for players who want them. But at the center of the main game, it still needs to be Aloy's story, that sense of discovery, character growth, and the cinematic adventure you experience on your own. Because what separates Horizon from other games is exactly that balance between emotional weight and solitary exploration. So the first big thing Horizon 3 needs to do is actually protect certain things. Horizon 3 can be bigger, more ambitious, and much more impressive on a technical level. But for all of that to really work, it cannot lose the part of the series people love most. And the clearest message players are sending is this. Let this universe grow, evolve, and become bolder. But while doing that, never destroy the strong single-player spirit that made us fall in love with this series in the first place. Number 2, stronger story depth and a better written nemesis. One of the biggest expectations players have for Horizon 3 is that the story truly feels like a major finale, because the nemesis threat revealed at the end of Forbidden West pushed the series toward not just another war, but a much bigger breaking point. But that is exactly why people no longer want some ordinary, a huge enemy shows up and we go defeat it kind of story. Especially after such a major setup, if Nemesis ends up feeling like just a simple final monster, it could be a serious disappointment. What a lot of players seem to want is this. Nemesis should not just be a force of destruction, but a threat that also needs to be understood. It should have motivation, psychological weight, and a strong connection to the past and to humanity's mistakes. The Horizon universe has always moved through themes like technology, arrogance, control, and human nature. So Nemesis needs to be threatening not only physically, but conceptually as well. People want more than just a giant boss. They want an unforgettable narrative. I think Guerrilla has a huge opportunity here. Because if Nemesis is written well, then Horizon 3 will not just become a visually large game, but also a much heavier experience emotionally and intellectually. If they build a story where Aloy has to confront the failures of past systems, the burden humanity carries, and her own responsibility, then this could become the strongest narrative in the entire series. Especially after the void left by Silence, giving the story a more mature, darker, and more intense tone would fit the third game extremely well. What players really seem to want is this. Horizon 3 should not just show us a bigger threat, it should also make us feel why that threat matters. If Nemesis ends up as nothing more than an evil that needs to be destroyed, then all of this build-up loses much of its impact. But if Guerrilla writes this threat in a layered, tragic, and truly memorable way, then Horizon 3 could become the strongest game in the series from a story standpoint. And honestly, that is exactly what many players most want to see. Number 3. A stronger sense of exploration. One of the most loved parts of the Horizon series is how stunning the world looks. Mountains, forests, ruins, flooded cities, lakes, machine-filled valleys, the visual power of this universe is incredibly strong. But there is a very specific request that stands out in some of the player comments. Sometimes, people just want to exist in this world. They want to walk around, fly, look, and soak in the atmosphere of the game without constant combat, pressure, or danger. And that request actually says a lot. Because if a player says, "I do not just want to fight here, I also want to live here a little," then that shows the world has been built in a truly powerful way. For many people, Horizon's world is not just an open world for doing quests. It is also a place they genuinely want to spend time in. That is why more open exploration options, more quiet moments, and maybe even an optional calm exploration mode could become very appealing in the third game. I think the important thing here is not reducing the action, but making exploration feel more meaningful. For example, the flight system could become much freer, underwater exploration could be expanded much more, and some regions could be designed more around scenery and mystery alone. The player should be able to connect with the world even without constantly feeling under threat. Because sometimes what makes a series unforgettable is not just the big battles. Quiet moments, empty space, and the feeling of the player really absorbing the world matter just as much. If Horizon 3 can make that exploration side freer, calmer, and more organic, then the atmospheric strength of the series could stand out much more. People do not just want new machines or a bigger map, they also want to be able to truly breathe inside that map. And honestly, if Guerrilla makes the right move here, Horizon 3 could become a game people talk about for a long time, not just because of its action, but because of the peaceful feeling of exploration it offers too. Number 4. The platform and release strategy needs to be clearer. Another big topic players keep discussing is which platform the game will release on, when it will release, and how it will be released. Because now, it is not just the quality of a game that matters to players, but also the way they will be able to access it. Especially with PS6 rumors, next-gen transition discussions, and questions about how long PC players might have to wait. Expectation is coming with a serious amount of stress too. People want the game, yes, but they are also asking, will I even be able to play it? That uncertainty becomes even more of a problem with major franchises. Because when players are waiting for a sequel, they are not just thinking about the story. They are also thinking about technical barriers, the cost of buying a new console, and how long they may have to wait for access. If Horizon 3 is presented only as a showcase for a specific system, that could lower the excitement for some players. Especially for the PC audience, waiting years is no longer something they want to do. Modern players pay attention not only to the announcement, but also to the access plan. I think what Sony needs to do here is very simple. Do not leave players in the dark. Is the game coming to PS5? Is it exclusive to next-gen only? How much later is the PC version planned? These things need to be discussed clearly and early. Because waiting for a game is one thing. Not even knowing whether you will be able to access that game is something else entirely. And most of the time, the discomfort in the community does not come from the game itself, but from this lack of communication. No matter how powerful Horizon 3 looks, if the release strategy leaves players confused, some of that excitement will disappear. So the expectation here is not only technical, but also communicational. People want clarity, they want honesty, and they want to see a plan. Because the impact of a major sequel is not created by a trailer alone. It truly grows when players are made to feel, yes, you will be part of this journey too. Number 5. Aloy's weapon system needs to be simpler but more functional. The Horizon combat system is generally well liked, but one of the biggest criticisms players had with the second game was the equipment overload. Too many bows, too many ammo types, too many modifications, and an inventory structure that sometimes felt more detailed than necessary ended up making the system feel heavier for some players. What looks like variety on paper can start to feel exhausting in practice, because players see dozens of options, but in reality, most of the time they only use a few of them. The main idea that stands out in the comments is this: people do not want more weapons, they want more meaningful weapons. In other words, every piece of equipment should have a real role. The player should make choices consciously, and the system should feel streamlined but still deep. Because more options do not always mean a better experience. In fact, for some players, one of the things that disrupts the rhythm of the game is exactly that feeling of unnecessary clutter. Especially when menu management starts to feel heavier than the combat itself, the flow of the game begins to suffer. I think what the third game needs to do is not shrink the system, but focus it. Fewer weapons, but with much more clearly defined identities, upgrades that work in a more obvious way, ammo rolls that are easier to understand, and equipment systems players can actually build a connection with would all lead to a much better result. The player should clearly know the answer to the question, why am I using this bow? In the same way, the modification system should become something that is not confusing, but actually makes decision-making enjoyable. If Guerrilla can simplify this side and make it more functional, then Horizon 3's overall gameplay flow could become much stronger, because players are not running away from depth. They are running away from unnecessary complexity. What they want is not simplicity, but refinement. In other words, if the mechanics become cleaner, easier to read, and more satisfying, then the combat system benefits massively from that. And honestly, a good sequel is not always the one that adds more things. Sometimes it is the one that understands which things need to be tightened up. So for you, which one of these 5 points is the most important? Which one feels absolutely essential? Or is there some other detail I did not mention here at all that you feel absolutely has to be in the game? Be sure to write it in the comments. I am going to read every single one, because sometimes the best ideas developers need to hear come directly from the players who genuinely love the game. If you enjoyed the video, do not forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Stay here for more Horizon 3 updates, theories, and discussions about what players really want to see. See you in the next video, and take very good care of yourselves.